So good morning, Liz. How are you?
Good, Beth. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. I absolutely loved Space Cadet. It was funny, it was nostalgic, and it was such a great film to watch.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Um, so what inspired this story?
Uh, there was a news piece a few years ago when NASA announced that they had their first class of astronaut candidates where it was 50-50 male female. And that just caught my eye. And so I read it really wondering who these women were who'd made it this far. And then I started to read about who all these people were and the requirements to get to that point and how incredibly stringent they are and how astonishingly accomplished the people were who even made it to the point where NASA would like interview them in person. Like considering them. They were
Oh,
so accomplished, just like how it says in the movie. It's like, higher level degree and established career in math and science and flight experience, yada, yada, yada. And I just started to think this is a great world for a comedy because these people are the environment is so intense, the stakes are so high, these characters are so extreme, and it's just sort of perfect for a fish out of water comedy. But in particular, like it's a great opportunity to have all these comedic performances from actresses. Felt like I'd never seen like multiple female roles playing highly accomplished, highly competent, highly competitive women. And we didn't have a female space movie. So I was excited about that.
that is exciting. Yeah. Um, and kind of going off of all of that, like there was this nice feel of like Legally Blonde meets Wild Child meets like all these other great comedies. What was kind of your goal for like the feel of the film?
Legally Blonde, Private Benjamin, some of the like 80s comedies that I grew up on, but like maybe less body. Like I used to sneak and watch all these the Police Academy movies that they would play on TV when I was a kid, which were these absurd, wonderful ensemble comedies that had like lots of dirty jokes in them that is probably why I wasn't supposed to be watching them. But what after I made this movie, I was like, oh, I think those Police Academy movies like really leaked into my brain and influenced this. They were always doing obstacle courses.
Yeah. No, the Police Academy movies were a staple in my household. So now that you
Okay.
mention it, everything makes sense. Um, what I really liked about this film is that like the plot itself is fun, the characters are funny, everything's crazy and whatnot, but there are so many themes and like layers to the film. So I was wondering kind of what is your hope that people take away?
I hope that people feel encouraged to pursue any dream, any goal that they're intimidated by. I really want the movie to have this sort of anti-elitist feel and this encouraging message that you might think you didn't go to a good enough school, or you don't speak the right way, or you don't dress the right way, or you don't have the resume, but to honor whatever gifts and drive you have and go after the thing anyway.
I love that. That's definitely kind of like the overarching theme, at least that
Good.
I so. Um, Another theme that really resonated with me personally was the idea that it's okay to take time to grieve and then kind of continue life. Like pick up where you left off kind of thing. And what I've noticed with quite a few of your films is that there is this like underlying theme of grief. Why?
It's funny. This will sound insane, but I honestly didn't realize until a few weeks ago that that was the common thread. Like
Oh, really?
I I just gravitate toward that story, and and I keep returning to it, and I think in some ways I don't know why. I mean, I had a seminal experience growing up where my best friend lost her mother when she was young, and that grief derailed her for a time. Now she's an incredibly accomplished doctor, but she had to come back from life. And I think I just have a great sympathy for people who don't do things in the conventional linear way, because most people don't. Most people don't realize what they want to be when they're 8 years old and pursue it with great success every step of the way. So when I read about, say, an industry, and I think in some ways film can be like this, which is maybe why it stirs my heart. But when I read about a dream, like being an astronaut, where so many of the people who achieved the dream started young and identified it and just went after it in this linear fashion, it makes me sad for the people who get dealt these curveballs because I think most people do, whether it's a loss, whether it's not having financial privilege, whether it's not allowing yourself the outrageous dream because you haven't seen anybody who looks like you doing it. I think it's more common that people have a natural aptitude for something and they deny themselves permission to pursue it because they're being practical. And I'm in an impractical job and I love it so much. And I wish that for everyone that they would go after what they're going to wind up loving. Um, and I feel compassion for the fear that stops us from pursuing that. Anyway, that's a long-winded response, but I don't know. I think that I am drawn to stories about grief because they're also just a story about how life comes and gets all of us. We're all having to go through the process in one way or another of recovering from what life does to us, whether it's mental health or physical health or financial struggles. That feels relatable to me, and it's just those are characters that stir my heart.
I agree. I agree. They do that for me too. And it just kind of when you add like that heaviness and that depth to them, it just like makes the comedy come out even more and it just
I
makes
could
it
not I could not agree more. Like one of my favorite movies is Dumb and Dumber, which is a ridiculous, outrageous comedy, but there's this one scene in it where Jim Carrey says, "I'm sick and tired of being a nobody." And his eyes fill with tears and he plays it like straight drama. It's totally sincere. He's wearing that ridiculous wig. He's got like one missing tooth, but he plays that completely straight and it just gives the movie, this ridiculous movie, so much heart.
um you also have this line, we're all stardust, and I just absolutely loved that. Can you explain kind of what that line means for the film?
Sure. Well, it's in the language of the film. It's a way of saying you're just as good as everybody else and you deserve to be here. And because it's truth about the universe. Someone who went to Harvard is built of the exact same stuff that you are. And for so many people, the pretty resume is built on privilege. And this moment where Rex thinks we are all stardust is a way of her using her knowledge about what the how the universe is built to tell herself that she literally has what it takes.
I love that. Like that's the thing about Rex is that like she's so qualified yet unqualified for this at the same time that it's like frustrating.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad that you feel that way. It should feel frustrating. It should feel like, no, she could help, and while lying is not great, like,
Right, right.
it's just that the universe, dealt her this roadblock, which means that her life, her resume doesn't look like everybody else's, but it doesn't mean she doesn't have the skills.
Yeah. Um, I loved the title Space Cadet. Mostly because when I think of Space Cadet, I think of someone who's in their own world, very much like Rex, but also it applies to the space theme. Um, so what was kind of your idea behind using Space Cadet as the title?
Well, so the story behind this movie was that I was going to write it on spec, attach myself to direct it, and sort of take it out to the market. And before I did that, when I had just started to work on the outline, I had a meeting with Greg Silverman, who wound up being the producer of this movie. I had a meeting with Greg, and I started to tell him sort of the elevator pitch. I got like halfway through the elevator pitch, and he finished it. He just knew what the movie was. He saw it the same way that I did, and he immediately said, and it's called Space Cadet. And I was like, yeah, yes. I hadn't even thought of a title yet, but it's perfect because it is about subverting your expectations. And it's about taking a term that's been used against women and reinventing it to show that people who we think of as being empty brained or frivolous deserve a second, deeper look.
I love that. Yeah, going into this, I took the title very literally. You know, she's going to space, she's trying to become an astronaut, and then seeing the character, I was like, oh, wait. And then as the movie progressed, it was like, I like this.
Oh, good.
Um, what made Emma Roberts the perfect Rex?
Well, it's amazing because you don't know when you're casting someone, you're taking this leap of faith. And I took the leap of faith based on the fact that I'd known Emma for many years. We'd been trying to work together. I knew that she was incredibly smart. I knew that when we talked about this movie, she saw it exactly the way that I did. She saw Rex exactly the way that I did. And I also knew that she's incredibly funny. Like, she could be a comedy writer. Her dry wit, her one-liners are sort of unbelievable. But then, it's not until you get on set and she slipped the character on that that I knew that I made the right choice, because there is no other version of Rex. I mean, Emma is so genius with the physical comedy. She has Rex's heart and enthusiasm and warmth. That's just part of her personality. But then she gave her this like really exuberant goofiness and the physical sort of confidence. This like I Love Lucy sort of zany physicality that wound up being so great.
It was truly great. Um, my final question for you, is AskCan an official NASA term, or is that something you came up with?
No, I don't think I could have thought of that. It's so absurd, and it's real. It is real.
I'm not gonna lie, I would have had the same reaction that Rex had upon hearing.
Yeah. How could you take yourself seriously if you're working so hard to be called an ass can? What?
Uh, I love that. All right. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you so much for chatting with me. And again, I love the movie and I can't wait for everyone else to see it.
Oh, thank you, Beth. It was really nice to chat with you
You have a great rest of your day.
too.